Gandalf is not special because he could summon fire or face a Balrog. He is special because in a world ruled by strength and pride, he was sent to serve. When the Valar sent the Istari, or the Wise, the Wizards, into Middle-earth, they did not send rulers but guides. Each was a Maya, a spirit of the same order as Sauron himself. But where Sauron sought dominion, Gandalf came in with humility, taking the frail body of an old man so that none would fear him. Wizards they were, of Maiar, sent by the Lords of the West to contest the power of Sauron and to unite all those who had the will to resist evil. From the beginning, that humility set Gandalf apart. Saruman loved structure and mastery. Radagast loved the wild. Gandalf loved people. He ate with hobbits, laughed with dwarves, counselled men, and refused to seize command where counsel would do. In Unfinished Tales, Tolkien notes that even before he came, Olórin feared Sauron's power, and that is why Manwë chose him, the only one who knew fear could awaken courage. Olórin was the wisest of the Maiar, and he pitied the sorrows of the children of Ilúvatar. Those who listened to him awoke from despair and grew wiser. So when we first see him in The Hobbit, he is not a blazing archmage, but a wanderer who nudges ordinary folk into extraordinary deeds. His strength is not domination, but the quiet gift of making others braver than they were the day before. That is Gandalf's difference. Not his magic, but his mercy. Not his fire, but his faith. Long before Gandalf the Grey, he was of course Olórin, like I've mentioned, a Maya of the Gardens of Lorien who often walked in the House of Nienna. That origin explains everything about the way he wields power. Unlike spirits who learned mastery, Olórin learned pity, to understand rather than to overbear. He was a lover of the children of Ilúvatar, and he walked among them unseen, and they did not know whence came the fair visions or the promptings of wisdom in their hearts. When emissaries were chosen, Olórin really hesitated. He feared Sauron, but Manwë's answer is the mission in a sentence. That is all the more reason why you should go, and that you may bring hope to the fearful. That humility, learned under Nienna, became the steady core of everything he did. It's why he speaks to kings and hobbits in the same voice, why he trusts gardeners with the fate of the world, and why he succeeds where Saruman fails. He comes not to command armies, but to awaken hearts. Very early, the wise perceived this in him. Círdan entrusted Gandalf with Narya, the Ring of Fire, to sustain others when courage ran thin, a sign that his calling was to kindle spirits, not to control them. And even in the Shire, we glimpse Olórin's method. Encourage, don't coerce. As he tells Thorin of Bilbo, there is a great deal more in him than you guess. The same instinct that will later shape the quest of the ring. That is why Gandalf's influence endures. He is a being of immense power who repeatedly declines to use it for himself, choosing instead to set light in others' hearts. Let them carry it on. Every story in Middle-earth at its heart is about the use and the misuse of power, and nowhere is that clearer than in the contrast between Gandalf and Saruman. Both were Maya, both were sent by the Valar, both were meant to guide, not to rule. Yet, where Gandalf's strength came from humility, Saruman's downfall was born of pride. Saruman the White hoarded knowledge, believing wisdom and authority were the same thing. Gandalf walked in taverns and forests, believing wisdom could live among the lowly. I am Saruman in many powers, Gandalf said. Saruman as he should have been. This is not arrogance. It's really sorrow. Gandalf is what Saruman was meant to be, a steward of knowledge, not its jailer. Saruman saw the enemy's fire and wanted to master it. Gandalf bore fire to warm the hearts of others. That difference was symbolized from the start by Narya, the Ring of Fire, which Círdan gave him with these words. Take this ring, for your labours will be heavy, but it will support you in the weariness that you will have to endure. Unlike the rings of power that enslaved, Narya's strengthened. Its fire was invisible, a warmth of courage. And that is what Gandalf spread. Not fear, not command, but endurance. In the end, Gandalf's greatest acts of power came through compassion. Where he faces the Balrog of Moria, he does not call on domination or wrath. He speaks as a servant. I am the servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Valinor. You cannot pass. Even in this greatest confrontation, Gandalf defines himself by service. Where Saruman says, I will, Gandalf says, I serve. And in Tolkien's world, that distinction makes all the difference between corruption and true courage. When Gandalf fell into shadow beneath Khazad-dûm, it was not just the death of a wizard, it was the shattering of the boundary between Middle-earth and the divine. He faced the Balrog not for glory, but because he must. Both were ancient spirits of the same origin, born of the flame imperishable itself, but one twisted toward ruin while the other devoted to light. I threw down my enemy, and he fell from the high place and broke the mountainside where he smote it in his ruin. Then darkness took me, and I strayed out of thought and time, and I wandered far on roads that I will not tell. Gandalf's death was not his defeat, it was his purification. In the abyss his mission was weighed, his humility tested, and his purpose renewed. When he was sent back, it was not by the Valar alone. Tolkien makes clear that only Eru-Ilúvatar, the creator himself, the One, could have restored him. Naked I was sent back, for a brief time until my task is done. This is one of the only direct acts of Eru in The Lord of the Rings, a divine intervention that reaffirms Gandalf's role as a vessel of grace and not authority. When he returns as Gandalf the White, his power isn't magnified, it's clarified. He doesn't gain new magic, he gains perfect purpose. His will and the will of the Valar are one. White is no longer white, and I am Saruman as he should have been. He returns with gentleness intact, laughing with hobbits, counseling kings, still walking as a guide rather than a god. His death and rebirth are not about gaining strength, but about proving that power cannot be destroyed, only renewed in service. And through that, Gandalf becomes Tolkien's living symbol of resurrection, not a figure of domination, but a divine humility restored to the world of men. If Sauron's strength was domination, like we've said, Gandalf's was influence. He never commanded armies or wore a crown, yet his hand is behind every act of resistance that shaped the fate of Middle-earth. None were more active than Gandalf, and he was the enemy of Sauron in all deeds, and was at the last the chief mover of the councils that resisted him. That single line reveals more than it first seems. Gandalf was not a general, he was the spark that kindled others into greatness. He did not build empires, he built courage. It was Gandalf who stirred Thorin Oakenshield to reclaim Erebor, knowing it would one day break Sauron's growing hold over the north. It was Gandalf who pushed a quiet hobbit out of his door and into legend, and who later trusted another hobbit to bear the greatest burden in Arda. He saw potential where others saw weakness. He looked not to kings or warriors, but to gardeners, thieves, and wanderers. Hobbits really are amazing creatures. You can learn all that there is to know about their ways in a month, and yet after 100 years they can still surprise you at a pinch. That is the essence of Gandalf's power. He never forced anyone's hand, he gave them the wisdom to choose rightly. Even his magic reflects this. His fire was not destruction, but illumination. His smoke rings and fireworks are as much a symbol of joy as his lightning in Moria is of defiance. Through every gesture, he showed that light and laughter can be stronger weapons than fear. And when the Fellowship formed, it was Gandalf who bound them together, not by an oath or a spell, but by simple trust. They followed him because they believed in him, and even after his fall, that belief carried them forward. That is how he won, not by wielding the ring, but by helping others resist it. In the end, Gandalf's magic is not measured in firestorms or spells, but in hope, in the quiet victories of the hearts he kindled along the way. So, when the ring was destroyed and Sauron's shadow lifted, Gandalf's task was complete. His time among the Free Peoples was over, and his final words to them remain among Tolkien's most beautiful. Well, here at last, dear friends, on the shores of the sea comes the end of our fellowship in Middle-earth. Go in peace. I will not say do not weep, for not all tears are an evil. This moment is not sorrowful, it is peace itself. For Gandalf, it is a return home, back to the Undying Lands, to the light that first sent him forth. His mission was never to dominate the world, but to prepare it for the age to come. By the time he sails west, the free peoples can now stand on their own. Men will rule their own destiny, and elves will pass into memory. The world no longer needs the guardianship of the Maiar. He leaves behind no monument, no fortress, no throne. Only the quiet legacy of hearts he strengthened. From the Shire all the way to Gondor, his influence remains not in power, but in peace. And in that peace lies the meaning of his final lesson, that the greatest victory is not in ruling, but in knowing when to let go. His departure mirrors his arrival, humble, unannounced, and without glory. Just as he once stepped into the Shire disguised as an old wanderer, he now steps aboard a white ship, smiling as he fades into myth. It is Tolkien's way of reminding us that true greatness often ends in silence, and that sometimes the brightest lights leave the softest footprints. And so, there we have it. Gandalf was never the strongest or the fiercest, he was the wisest. He changed Middle-earth not through power, but through kindness, and that is what makes him truly special. But now it is your turn. What moment best defines Gandalf to you? Was it his stand against the Balrog, his words to Frodo in Moria, or perhaps his final farewell at the Grey Havens? Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this in the comment section down below. And along with that, if you would like to support the channel in other ways, please consider our Patreon. It would really help us out in that up and down world of YouTube. But with that, thank you for spending just some of your time with me today, and I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.
End? No, the journey doesn't end here. Death is just another path. One that we all must take.